I'd like to welcome you to Change My Relationship podcast. And I have with me today kind of a combination. I do interviews with experts and with people who have worked through a personal relationship struggle and kind of come out on the other end. But Barbara Grant here today qualifies for both of those. So she's a dedicated neurodiverse couples coach with both personal and professional expertise in navigating the unique dynamics of neurodiverse relationships. She holds a master's degree in marriage and family therapy and is a certified autism specialist and neurodiverse couples coach. Her coaching is grounded in her innovative roadmap to hope and healing, which we are going to talk about some today. It's a research-based, results-driven approach inspired by her own experiences within neurodiverse marriage and family life. She is passionate about helping individuals and couples heal, grow, and determine the sustainability of their relationships. Barbara brings empathy and insight to her work. She's been featured on popular podcasts such as Neurodiverse Love, Your Neurodiverse Relationship with Jodi Carlton, and the Neurodiverse Christian Couples Podcast. And additionally, she is the editor and a contributing author of Uniquely Us, Gracefully Navigating the Maze of Neurodiverse Marriage, Autism, and Faith. And I actually endorsed that book. I believe there's an endorsement from
Yes,
me.
there is.
Barbara currently co-hosts the Neurodiverse Couples Coaches Corner podcast. So we're going to talk at the end how you can get in contact with her and find out more about her information. But for now, Barbara, welcome.
Thank you so much, Karla. And I'm such a big fan of your work, and so much of the work you've done has really poured into my ministry and my coaching work. So thanks to you for going before me and opening the way.
Well, I love to hear that because it is honestly a labor of love and dedication. And so all you got to do, I am a type A driven person who is a choleric. And so when you tell me that my work has made an impact, that's all I need to just boost me to keep on going.
Amen. I can't wait to be on the receiving end of your hard work.
Okay, so we're going to start off with just talking about your marriage to a neurodiverse man. Can you tell us about that marriage?
Well, so we married, gosh, a long time ago. He was older, I was getting older. And when I met him, he liked Star Trek. He was interesting. He had a lot of interest in trivia. And we were both living on the West Coast, but we were from back east. We were living from areas around the metropolitan New York area. And we had a lot in common, I thought. And I thought we hit it off, and we did, actually. And getting into marriage was fine. He was often, even in early stages of the marriage, watching television till late at night, and I, his happy little waiting in the bedroom bride, was waiting for him and was a little kind of confused, like, what is not working here? Like, why is TV more important than me? But we just kept moving forward and had children. And there were times in our marriage where I just couldn't figure out where he was coming from at all. I will say I was a very strong-willed woman. I was very articulate. I'm a bit like you, I'm the type A, let's get it done, a bit driven, and I'm very fast to process. And he was a lot more deer in the headlights, going into freeze instead of fight or flight, and even fawn. And I always had the sense that there was a lot going on under the hood that he wasn't getting open about, that not in a cheating or diabolical way, but that he was holding his cards close to his vest. And I remember a time, even before our children were born, when his parents and I kind of challenged him on that dynamic of his. And he was kind of mystified, like he really didn't know what we were talking about. And we kind of just gave up trying to help him be more transparent in his life. When we had kids, he was a wonderful playful dad. He was kind of like a big kid himself in many ways. That was really lovely for fathering. But I often was more the over-functioning one, the looking forward down the road one, the worrying about how everything was balancing and whether it was balancing. In fact, I was the one who really wanted to have kids. He didn't regret having them. But I remember he was already in his mid-40s when I was ready to go for it. And he's like, I don't know that I'm old enough to have kids. And I thought, I know. I thought, like, what are you waiting for? I mean,
Exactly.
really?
You don't want to be 60 or 70 typically.
Well, so I think what, we never figured out while we were married that he was autistic and ADHD. All right. And what ended up happening is he had a very successful career, which really fell apart on him. The industry change that he was in, and his employer downsized, and he was a head that rolled. And he also had lost his mother and then was losing his father. And he kind of just went underground. He was in what now I know was autistic and ADHD burnout.
Oh.
He had been living beyond his ability to navigate and cope with a lot of things in life. Parenting, husbanding. And, the good thing about what happened in that time of crisis in our marriage is we did come to faith. We both, decided to look up Jesus Christ and make him our Lord and Savior. And we got involved with a church that was very much about discipling and accountability. And we had couples shepherding us for years.
That's nice.
So, but when that church kind of disbanded and fell apart and the leadership moved out of the area, we were kind of without support. And we went to a new church where the men were trying to help him get back on the horse and kind of get with the program of life. I was working full time. I was juggling all the plates. I was pretty much like a single parent. And I was becoming extremely angry, bitter, afraid, resentful. And I tell, it's a bad joke, but I say, we did have it in common that he kind of wanted to die and I kind of wanted to kill him.
Oh.
I mean, that's, that's kind of where we were at. I started backing off when the men at church kind of helped out to work with him, but he, for one reason or another, he did move out. He said, I just need time to get sorted. I'm like, okay. And it just never gelled. He never came back into the marriage. He just moved further and further out onto his own. He wanted to separate our finances so that he could afford to not just be in a rented room. And when we learned in California that financial separation and divorce is almost the same process, except you don't end up divorced, he basically said, well, let's just end this. And I'm like, you know what? I've been life supporting this, I thought, for so many years, like, okay, let's do that. And it was such a sad ending, Karla, in that I just didn't know what else to do. I couldn't figure out why he wasn't showing up and suiting up. And I was tired. And I had kids that were now in their teens, and I was working full time. And the good thing about our relationship was we were always putting the kids first. We were always devoted to the children, and he was a good father, even in the divorce and separation divorce. And he's always been there for the kids. And I admired that in him. And I ended up getting remarried. And in his years after the divorce, I finally had my son diagnosed as being high functioning, what is now autism, but back then it was Asperger's. They didn't catch his ADHD at the time, though. Back then you could only have ADHD or autism. You couldn't have both in the DSM-4. At that point, I realized that my first husband was ADHD and autistic. But we had already moved towards partnering more when he was sick with cancer and some really depleted health issues. I was able to take him into the home I lived in. My kids and I took care of him. And we always were like brother and sister in Christ, such that when he met the woman he then remarried, he kind of invited me to have coffee with them, and she and I just fell in love with each other. And to this day, it's been years. We're on our 11th year of monthly prayer calls, me and the two of them.
Wow.
We are a three-way prayer warrior team. She and I call each other the sister wives. It's kind of a joke, but it's like, well, we're united in Christ, and we've all had multiple marriages, and we've all been given grace, and so we are going to give grace and forgive. And in the years since then, I've learned so much about autism and ADHD because of my first husband, my kids. And now I realize, oh my goodness, it was in my family of origin.
Oh my.
My grandfather, my first cousin, my uncle. I see a little bit of it in my sisters. I think it's in my father's family because I have first cousins who have contacted me. They see what I post on Facebook, and they have said, oh yes, here in the Czech Republic, we also are autistic. I'm like, okay. So Karla, I was swimming in a sea of autism. And when you say to a fish, what's water? A fish is like, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, I didn't. Autism was familiar. It was family. It was the air I breathed, the language I spoke. So it was hard for me to discern there was something that different because it was what I was used to.
That makes sense. Absolutely. Well, your kids are really lucky to have parents that can work that well together after a divorce. That's like the ideal situation. So that's wonderful. But wow, so that's a lot of people that had autism or neurodiversity around you. And we'll get into the studies. There is a genetic component. They're finding
80% plus. Yeah, definitely. The main reason. It's the main reason people are thought to be autistic.
Yeah, because it is just more and more running, in families like that where you can see that. Yeah. So you are a neurodiverse couples coach. So what's different about being a neurodiverse couples coach and just being a regular couples coach?
Therapist. So, I kind of backed into this whole thing. I really did. I was already a biblical counselor at church for years, and I was running up against my lack of understanding of psychological issues. So I got a master's in marriage and family therapy. And concurrent with that, I was having a lot of relational challenges that were with neurodivergent people. And I found people who were able to coach me in that relational situation. And I learned that neurodiversity, because of the relational differences, the processing differences, the sensitivities of a neurodivergent person, the defensiveness, often they have rejection sensitive dysphoria. They have a different ability, especially autistic people, to have theory of mind, meaning they see their point of view. The word autism comes from the Greek word autos, and autos is self. So automobile is a self-moving car, right? Mm-hmm. Automatic, automotive, right? And people that are autistic see the world the way they see it. They're self-referencing, but they have a hard time understanding there are other points of view that are equally valid and can be entertained and considered, especially in relationship, which is, I think, why no matter what my in-laws and I told my first husband,
didn't matter. He
just couldn't see it.
Right.
Didn't see it.
Not because he didn't want to, but because he actually couldn't.
Yes and no. The natural tendency is not to see it.
Okay.
All right. But there is an element of what I call masking or shame, deflection or fear that keeps people not wanting to see it.
Yeah, that's our natural defensiveness. Yeah,
yes.
Because we don't.
Everybody can be in denial. Denial is an equal opportunity for everyone. Right.
So you can have autism and be in denial, which is a complicating factor, right?
It's a complicating factor. And so anybody can be humble and teachable that wants to be.
Yes.
All right. Because we don't believe that the Lord created people to be programmed to just be doomed to their myopia. I don't believe that at all.
Okay.
I don't. And I know too many people that are either autistic or ADHD or both, or have other learning challenges that have overcome that and are working. They're never going to be the best relation. They're going to have to work.
Right.
But guess what? Helen Keller had a lot of work to do in her life to communicate and think and learn the way she did with all the strikes against her that she had. Right.
Good illustration.
Absolutely. So it's possible where there's a will, there's a way. And it isn't so much about how good you get at it. It's, do you want to get better? Are you curious?
Well, and I think it's really helpful for a spouse who's struggling with all this to see even some willingness to address it, admit it, and change it, even if it isn't going to make that person like somebody that was a neurotypical. So you're still going to have some struggles and maybe some limitations, right? But if that person is open.
And we have to also define that, because I work with couples where both of them are autistic. And you know what? They may have some executive functioning challenges, and they may have some needs to learn better communication and problem resolution simply because they're both in their own lanes and they're not seeing each other's points of view easily. Okay. But because they're both more independent and have their own special interests, these people get along great in many ways. All right. It's that there's nothing, and I really want to make sure I say this. Neurotypical does not mean we're normal, neurotypicals are normal, and neurodivergent people are abnormal. That is not what that means. Okay. Neurotypical is a statistical fact that more people are in this place of non-neurodiversity, the mean curve, like the average person, the typical population is neurotypical, is not neurodivergent. Neurodivergent is more different, just different. I don't call it a disorder. Okay. Though the DSM-5 still does. It is a wiring difference. Okay. Okay. The people are often Stradivarius violins. They are not banjos. Right. And how a neurotypical partner relates to her or his neurodiverse spouse is important for them to get educated. Sure. And my coaching is never about, oh, let's make the one more like you. It's like, no, you're Mandarin Chinese and this person is Swahili. Let's learn to find a unified language, a unified understanding, a midway point, appropriate expectations, lean in. Everybody has to grow and change. Okay. And too many people that I work with come with other issues besides neurodiversity. True. It's a complicating issue, but it's not the only issue involved. Exactly. That which makes it, definitely. So you're saying that without a doubt, if there is a neurodiverse partner that wants to learn about their neurodiversity and is going to understand that they are self-referencing and that they tend to only see their self, what does it take? Can they self-trigger to listen to tell themselves, oh, I need to listen to my spouses? So they can do that. They can learn to self-trigger themselves to be aware. Yes. And they do that by asking questions, how do they do that? Well, sometimes they might need a prompt that they're missing something. Okay. All right. And so my coaching is built on the fact that we all have neuroplastic brains, Karla. Okay. God made the human being the most adaptable creature on the planet. We have proven over millennia that we can live in ice ages, we can live in deserts, we can live on water, we can live in jungles, we can live on mountaintops, we can live in war zones, we can live in drought, we can live, and forge new, we can cross oceans, we can find our way. Like, our brains are outstandingly learning machines if we know how to use them. All right. So the brain is, you and I are the way we are. We could say, well, that's just the way I am. And you saying, oh, I'm a type A. Well, that's the way you're behaving right now, based on a lot of programming. True. All right. And when we're little, we start getting programmed. We see things, we don't know anything. We're like a blank motherboard coming into the world. And how our parents treat us, how our caregivers handle us, our siblings, what the world tells us about ourselves. This is where attachment issues develop or attachment styles form. And patterns of behavior, patterns of thinking a truth, believing certain things, feeling a feeling with that, and acting in that. I call that a data set.
Okay.
Right? What you think, what you feel, and what you do. And if you do the same thought, feeling, and behavior repeatedly, our brain is an automation machine. Our brain is going to go, oh, she's creating a habit here. Let's program that. Okay. So it now builds neurosynaptic networks that are housing that pattern. And I know this because, for instance, I'll be at church Sunday morning. I come out of church. I'm like, I need to go get eggs so I can do my baking this afternoon. And I start talking and I'm listening to music. And where do I end up? In my driveway. Because I'm running the drive home program, not the go get eggs program. All right. So for me to get eggs, I have to put something on my dashboard and look at it at several of the stoplights coming up to go, okay, keep going to the store.
It seems like the older we get, that the more we do that automatic program and forget those things.
Well, yes and no. Yes and no. Because the brain is neuroplastic till we die. Unless we have a real brain injury or a brain problem, all right? And this saying, oh, you can't teach an old dog, that's complete nonsense. That is complete nonsense, all right? Because some of the most alive and learning people on the planet are in their decades of 80s and even 90s. I myself, I'm going to be 68. I've just finished my master's degree. I've got a whole new career going. I'm helping write books. I mean, this is not what I was doing 10 years ago. It's all new to me. Yeah. And I'm pretty geared up to keep learning and growing. But I understand that in order to do something new and make a new, better behavior my habit, I have to first identify the old habit I want to stop. And I can't actually erase that program. Right, no. I can only program over it. I can only get a bug fix and make a new program. And then when my brain sees that I have both things that I'm doing, it'll go, well, she doesn't have an autopilot. She's got an option. For me to keep making the new behavior my habit, I have to practice it, because practice does not make perfect. It makes permanent.
Yeah.
And in time, I am going to do this thing. If I went to buy eggs every Sunday, I would end up in the parking lot of Safeway and not in my driveway, even if I wanted to be in my driveway.
Understood. Okay, so we're talking a little bit about the things that are included, I'm sure, in your roadmap to hope and healing, which is for couples and individuals wanting to make their neurodiverse relationship better.
Yes.
And one of the things that you have on there is to give grace and space.
Yes.
What is that?
Well, grace and space, it seems to me that when couples come in to coaching, and I was this way in my marriage, I was like fit to be tied. Like, he wanted to die and I wanted to kill him. People are just so at odds and so raw and so not able to productively team pretty much on anything. And one wants to blame the other, and no one wants to really see what the log is in their own eye. And so I am encouraging people. In fact, I don't work with them together. They start separately in my coaching, because the neurotypical has a whole lot of things to learn that are really different than what the neurodiverse person has to learn. And I have to figure out what each of them are all about, and they have to both trust me, and I have to start being translator for the two of them. All right. And I want them to calm down, get in their own lane, take the log out of their own eye, figure out what of all the things, self-care, setting your own goals for growth, understanding your neuroprofile, understanding the others, understanding what the damage has been, understanding if there's past trauma and attachment stuff you each need to deal with separately that had to be brought into the marriage, learning how to be self-controlled, how to do somatic body exercises, how to calm down, right? Yeah. And also learning that you're responsible for your emotional behavior outbursts. Nobody makes somebody abusive or sinful in their anger. Right. And anger is not a sin, right? We can sin in our anger, right? So, and also learning about boundaries, which like so far, nobody coming into coaching that I've worked with has ever said, oh, I totally have boundaries figured out. They've said, oh, I've read this book or I've read that book. And I'm like, how's that going? Yeah, the book is one thing, applying it is another.
Exactly.
Right. So that's why I put them in their own track. And what I ask them to do is listen, you are not equipped right now to talk about anything important with the other. You cannot solve problems. If you could, you wouldn't be in coaching.
Very true.
You don't have the tools. You don't have the bandwidth emotionally. You don't have the understanding. You don't know how not to make your own mistakes. You don't know how not to get triggered. You don't know how to not trigger them. So right now, other than asking, what you want at the grocery store, or what time should I have dinner ready, or some very logistic things, I really don't want couples taking on big, weighty things like buying a house or building an addition in the backyard, or like, this is not the time to do that. Coaching,
or trying even to fix their relationship.
No.
Failed attempts that they've done in the past.
Exactly. We need to take a time out, and everybody needs to give themselves and the other space and grace and compassion for self and other, and lean into hopefulness. Right. And right there, Karla, when couples stop fighting and get calm down, the atmosphere clears, and they, because many of them do want what's best. They want to be better, and they want the other person to feel better. And now we're starting to accent the positive, lift up what's going well, celebrate the good, see the good, right?
Which is often not seen when you're in the midst of struggles.
Exactly. You just see the bad and the other's the enemy. You're in enemy mode, right? So that's what Space and Grace is about. And ideally, Space and Grace becomes a habit for each of them that they can take into all the marriage coming ahead of them.
All their relationships.
All their relationships.
Grace and space for all of our relationships.
That's exactly right. And I love it that you said that, because though I'm coaching this relationship of theirs, this marriage, I tell them, I say, look, if you get involved with what I teach you, you will be a better relationship person 360 degrees. You'll be a better parent, a better daughter, a better employee, a better boss, a better neighbor. You'll just be better because you'll understand what's healthy in relationship and what's not.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's really good. Then you did mention self-care and self-control. You elaborated a little bit on that. So I want to jump to having you go into a little bit more about conquering shame and blame.
Okay. So I believe that shame and blame is the deep wound of the entire human race.
Yeah.
All right.
Which came from sin.
Well, it does. It comes from our response to sin.
It does.
Because notice that in the garden, when they fell into shame and fear and hiding, they kind of forgot who God really was. And nobody said, hey, he's a good father. He's been a great guy. Let's just go and tell him what happened and see if he can fix this.
No, they lied.
It didn't even occur to them that they could say they're sorry.
Right.
Nobody apologizes in the Garden of Eden. And God is like, hey guys, I'm in the grace business. I'm here but you're not asking for that. You're blaming each other. And so blame, Karla, is like where there's smoke, there's a fire.
Yeah.
Where there's blame, there's shame. Blame is what we throw when we feel shame.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. I love that. That's
very clear. And they rhyme. So we can remember that.
Yep.
So if I'm blaming, and I don't want to say, well, okay, she has a lot of problems, but I'm the husband, or he has a lot of problems, but I'm the wife. I need to look at what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I need to take responsibility for what I can control, because I can't control what he's doing. And I don't have to shame him, and I don't have to be shamed. So part of Space and Grace is stop shaming each other. Stop blaming and shaming each other. And that shame wound is a habit.
Yes.
It's a deep, deep habit for some people, especially neurodivergent people, because they've been in hiding and fear a good part of their lives.
Yeah.
right? They
Yeah.
know at a young age, I'm a little different.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow they get the vibe like, yeah, I better not tell anybody about this. And I better act, I better mask, I better get my fig leaves on in place.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody comes looking underneath I'm like, no, everything's fine. There's nothing here. These are not the droids you were looking for, like whatever, you know.
So you want to help them both look at that part. And that component does make things worse. And both people are dealing with their own shame because we all have layers of shame from our childhood and our prior relationship experiences in so many different layers. So I think that's absolutely wonderful. Another goal that you talk about is, and this is all written out for people on your website, and at the end we'll tell them how to go access this and look at it. Another goal is perspective taking. I think you talked a little bit about that at beginning, where you've kind of got to understand where the other person is coming from. But can this help also if only the neurotypical partner does it? What if the neurodiverse partner isn't able or willing to look at the other person's perspective? Does it help if there's only one?
Absolutely. And that's a big, I do actually, my largest client base are usually the neurotypical women whose husbands either don't want to come into coaching or aren't are only interested in a little help, but not it can go the other way though. Sometimes I just work with the autistic people and they are incredibly dedicated and their neurotypical partners have like dismissed them and left them or whatever. So perspective taking, a lot of perspective taking is how the information is given to us. All right. So if it's given with shame and blame and anger, nobody's open to hearing that.
No.
Everybody's going to be on the defensive. They're in enemy mode, right?
Automatically shut down.
Right. So a lot of what I have to teach, even the neurotypical or whoever wants to learn, is how to speak the truth in love. And I have this whole thing, the boundary love sandwich, where we say something loving, we cite them on something, we say something loving, we invite them to a different behavior, and we love them again. So lots of love. I'd say don't even verbally say this. Send it in a text with a lot of love, little hearts all over it so they think it's good news. It is good news.
Okay.
It's a lot of affirmation and then a simple ask without it being an accusation. All right. But it has to be done well. And this is what I teach the one, if there's only one partner in the coach, I say you have to learn how to be a good communicator. You have to learn to listen and validate. And then you have to speak clearly, not 29 sentences, but 2, and see if they're tracking. We do a lot of active listening, right? So if I'm saying several things, even to an autistic client, I will stop and say, so mirror back to me what that meant to you. Let's see if I said it in a way that you understand what I'm trying to say, because I might have said it wrong. And if they can mirror back to me, then I can go, oh, okay, great. So let me build on that now. And I can give them more information. Perspective taking is a lot about communication. It's just a lot. And there needs to be a lot of good communication because like Helen Keller needed braille and specific hand, she needed certain kinds of communication or she wasn't getting it. And we have to learn to help each other and get on each other's communication wavelength better.
So, and then I love that boundary sandwich. I teach a class on boundaries too, as you know. So I'm really big on boundaries. But I like that idea. And I think I did that without even knowing that you taught that.
Yeah.
The other day with my husband, we've got a senile dog, little dog, rat terrier, about 15 pounds, and is on the bed. My husband gets up early and then he goes about his business, but the dog will wake me too early because I stay up late. So I'm like, please, when you get up, just take the dog out to go to the bathroom so that he won't wake me up like right after you leave. And so he does it, but he lets the dog walk back with the nails on the floor into the room, which wakes me up anyway. So I was annoyed, but I went up to him and I put my arms nicely around him and I looked at him about this far away and I said, "Thank you for doing such a great job taking the dog out every morning. Could you just do one extra thing? Could you please carry him back into the bedroom so he doesn't wake me up with his nails on the floor?" And he said, "Okay, I'll try. I'll really try to do better with that."
All right, you see, there it is, right there. Perfect. Yeah, if you had thrown a pillow and yelled and said, "You idiot, can't you understand?" Like, that's not going to get you like more flies or caught.
Exactly. And then he said, "Well, I'm not going to stand at the door and wait for him." And I do. I would stand at the door and wait for him. Okay. But I didn't say, "Oh, well, that's the problem. You don't have the right mindset. You're not willing to stand at the door and wait for him." I just said, "Well, could you just try to make sure that you carry him into the room?" And so I love it. It went so well. Now, not guaranteed to always go well. It depends on the content, but it's going to go a whole lot better with anyone if you do it that way.
I think
rather
so
than,
too.
Yeah, an accusation or a demand or a criticism with a demand.
Absolutely. Yeah. And different issues have to be handled differently. The more upset I am, the more careful I need to be in how I frame up what I want to say.
And sometimes wait. I mean,
waiting is great. Yeah. Waiting is real, like not just count to 10, like count to 300, count to 7 days. I mean, like take your time,
exactly.
Get advice, pray about it. Yeah,
exactly. And we have the scripture that, a lot of scriptures mess Christians up, as I'm sure you know, and I do a lot of my teaching on correcting misunderstandings about scriptures because we just tend to take one and we make this big dogma about it and rigidly have to apply it. And that whole idea about be angry and sin not, don't let the sun go down in your wrath. I mean, I wrote one of my devotionals about this and it's just like, wait a minute. That doesn't mean that it means don't make a habit of just stuffing everything and never dealing with it. But, I gave an example that it happened in my relationship where my husband and I hit heads over something and we were both upset. And but the next day after I thought it through, I had a different way of how I wanted to approach it with him. And I did it in a really wise way. And he just went, "Oh, okay." And the night before, we would have gone to bed with a big fight because I could tell that it was a stress point that had come up actually about his dad. And, that tended to be heated with things that had to do with that situation. And I was just like, "No. I'm not in a place right now." And he also when he goes right before he goes to bed, he's like, "Don't bring up problems right before I go to bed."
Yeah.
I need to be respectful about that. Yeah. So it's like that was absolutely the wrong thing to do was to say, I have people who tell me, "Oh no, we have to talk about it."
So I always think of the sun as being, we are so not the ancient people that the Bible was written to and Jesus was speaking to it, because everyone functioned when in the light of day they could do things, and then at night there was no electricity, so you couldn't do much, right? So the idea of doing things in the light means do things when you see clearly. When the sun is up, when you have the wherewithal and the clarity and the faculty to deal with things, then we should deal with them. But as the sun goes down, meaning you're losing bandwidth, you're losing patience, you're losing emotional regulation, you're losing cognitive clarity. Now you're in the dark. You're already in the dark. It's not about what time of day it is. It's
not about shoving it in because it has to be done.
No.
It's really about and there's so many scriptures in the Bible that would give you other options. Options like, to be silent and to, not confront a fool because you'll be like a fool and all kinds of different things. So it's like we have a whole resource of things that can help us to be wise, but we have to be discerning. I always say you can have the wisdom of what is right and what is wrong and what is good and not so good, but you got to have a whole lot of discernment of how to walk that out.
Yeah.
And that takes really, but first you got to know that you don't have to apply those things rigidly in order to be discerning. So, I mean, and part of what you're doing is you're teaching couples to be discerning about themselves and about each other It sounds like you teach a lot of skills.
Well, that and I love working with Christian and couples and believers because they have an extra lever to pull. That would be Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And frankly, I struggle to work with couples that don't have that framework. And one of the things I want to say about the Lord being part of the equation is He is the equation. I mean, we often when we get married in this country, we have this unrealistic expectation of the other is going to complete me, which is totally idolatry when God completes us. God made us for Him. We're made for unity with the Trinity forever. He's our forever person.
Yes.
And He's loaned us out on earth here to learn a few things, learn about Him, learn about each other, bless some people. Yes, enjoy marriage as a special unity and special relationship. But too many people, especially in the happily ever Disney-esque landscape of America, right, are thinking, oh, my spouse has to be my everything. And they lose themselves in their identity and they don't stand on the rock.
Right.
And you've got two drowning people using each other as flotation devices.
Well, and then we add into it the misunderstanding from Christians often that, well, we're going to be one, which means we lose our individuality, which is absolutely not true. We are individuals first who are married. And there's a special thing about that connection and about that union. However, we are still individuals with individual responsibility, individual choice, individual feelings, and it all has to be taken into consideration. And if we think that we have to be one, that is going to make your problems.
It's impossible. Then that's a doomed to failure situation. Yes. Unless you're happily enmeshed and codependent and loving brawling and, this is how it goes. And neurodiverse couples have an extra opportunity, I think, because for them to do it well, it does help them so much more to stand on the Lord as their source and their identity, especially if you're given to shame, because there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ. So bringing down the grace of God into your life and walking in it in a way that not that you can't do any wrong. But I can admit my wrong because there's forgiveness. I don't have a problem saying, oh boy, I really screwed that up.
Yeah. I mean, God does not want us to walk in shame. And some people have a shame-based faith where they think God is the Father going, you did wrong. And it's like, you're messing up. You're not doing good. But that's the opposite. It's filled with grace.
What you're describing, I see it a lot in the rules-based thinking of neurodiverse people, the autistic mindset, is they write the rules, they learn about their faith based on the rules they think they're following, and they want everybody to follow the rules. They're going to follow, of course, their own interpretation, but it's not a relational understanding of God. It's based on law, right? It's not based on grace. So one of the things I love doing is helping people that are in that mindset cross over into grace, Karla. It's like they're learning about the gospel for the first time. And that's very powerful. And again, if you don't have the gospel to learn about and you're just trying to learn different skills and new rules, that's kind of window dressing and maybe even deck chair arranging on the Titanic. I'm like, that's not going to transform a mind, a heart, a soul. And help them really be confident enough and open enough to be curious and growth.
And when you talked about, well, I think I'm going to go to that next, but you talk about teaching them neurodiverse communication strategies. What does that involve that you haven't already covered?
I think it first of all, it starts with, again, owning about how just shooting out your message has on either side has just been a disaster. Screaming at each other in two different languages is just a lot of screaming and no progress. So it's really an unlearning of that reflexive, I'm frustrated, I can open my mouth and say what I want to say. That's like, forget that. All right. And it's about taking your thoughts captive and working through what do you really feel and what do you really want to communicate and why. Are you communicating because it solves a problem, or you want to blame somebody or shame them, or you feel you have to get your need met and you haven't considered other ways to get that need met? Maybe this person isn't available to meet that need, right? Maybe they have limits and you need to go build a joy team of people in your life that can love on you and also be your people, that you're getting your relational needs met so that you are coming to your marriage with overflow, not scarcity, right? Of relational experience. So I just think it's a different math that we're doing. And the skills follow from the understanding that you can't make any assumptions. We all have to be curious, not thinking we know it, and calming it down and affirming the good in them, looking at each of them as an 8-ounce glass of water, maybe only got 4 ounces, but looking at those 4 ounces as, well, we are half full, not half empty, and having a positive mindset and also noticing how we interpret things. Because if we're insecure and shame-based, like I interpreted the young bride that I was, frisky in the bedroom, waiting for my husband, I interpreted his late night television viewing as total rejection and humiliation, right? And he interpreted it as, I need time to wind down. This is my alone time. This is my self-care time. He didn't know that he was autistic and he needed that, but that's what he was doing. He was taking care of him, and he wasn't ready to relationally join with me in a way that I would have found satisfying really anyway, right? And the sex part of this is a whole other but that was a whole other podcast.
We should probably talk about that sometime, because I know sex addiction is just, I continually hear that couples, when women talk to me about their husbands that have ASD, that they also have sex addiction, and it just or ADHD. So it tends.
So yeah, the ADHD brain, and more the ADHD brain even than the autistic brain, is serotonin short. And there's a serotonin seeking of the hit, the dopamine hit.
Leads you to addiction.
Yeah, it's dopamine short too. And so because there's a lack of executive functioning and reasoning ability, they can be very impulsive, ADHD people, and just without even thinking, go for it. And they form habits in the amygdala hippocampus. They're very primal habits. So sex is a very primal thing.
Totally.
And when you start bonding with sexual experiences at age 12 or so, and you're doing porn, you are now bonding with the idea of women in an object way, not in a relational way, but this is a self-serving pursuit that plays right into some of the preferences or the natural inclinations of a neurodivergent mind, right? But anybody can be addicted. Anybody can be addicted to anything. So I think porn is an epidemic in our culture of men in general.
It is. Absolutely.
It's really what's wrong with American culture is porn. It's the bottom line in my book.
Yeah.
So, and it's unmasked and nobody talks about it, and technology is just enabling
making it worse. Absolutely. And younger and younger, because it's, they're even kids. Yeah. And I know my daughter, when dating, had trouble finding men that she'd date them and think they were really nice. And almost every single one of them, when she got closer, would have to admit, hey, I watch porn and it's kind of an addiction. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a big thing. This is not a minor thing. This really impacts a relationship.
Well, along those lines, I will say that if anyone wants to look up I believe it was the August podcast series that Dr. Stephanie Holmes and Dan did with the Neurodiverse Christian Couples, they had 4 amazing segments all about porn, and men speaking about it, women speaking about it in very, very helpful ways with a slant towards neurodivergent. Andrew Bauman was on there as an amazing Christian counselor.
I think I'll go ahead and link to those in the notes since you brought them up. I'll look for them. If I have trouble finding them, I'll ask you to give me the links, but I should be able to find them. And that way people can look at, because that comes up
Yeah,
with.
that's solid gold stuff. And I do, I ask both the men and the women, because it might be the behavior of one, but there again needs to be an understanding on the partner's part of how did this addiction evolve. It's not just a betrayal of her.
Right.
That's if we would personalize it and feel victimized and wounded and la la la. But it is a very intrinsic, it's just so deeply intertwined with so many issues that the neurodivergent person is having. And it is possible for them to own it, repent of it, go cold turkey, start feeling better, because it turns out porn sucks the life out of men. It sucks all the energy. I'll send you it's called The Great Porn Experiment. It was a TED Talk. And this dude, he's now passed. He was a real sort of visionary and forerunner of the problem of porn years ago.
I think I might have seen that.
You might have. It's been around. And he talks about how debilitating it is. It causes erectile dysfunction. Viagra is one of the top selling drugs in the country. Why? Yeah, right? So.
Yeah, I think I did see that. So now you have a couple other roadmaps that I find interesting. One is, we're not going to go into them, but I want just to kind of look at why do you have the different ones? Do you have a roadmap to joy that you say is for individuals?
Yes.
Who's that for?
That is mostly people who are realizing their partner is MIA in terms of working with them, and they may not be sure that the relationship's going to last. So they have to now do the work they need to do to be healthy and to heal and to find joy in their life. Okay. And then many people have young children or children, they don't want to leave the marriage, or there's a financial situation that they can't leave the marriage. So how to get in your own lane and build your joy team and stay well enough. How not to allow more abuse, how not to have that be a fool and argue with a fool according to his folly, how to set expectations, how to grieve your losses. Yes. Cry the tears you need to dealing with reality, right? Because I love it. Lisa TerKeurst's new book that she came out with, The Good Boundaries and Goodbyes. And throughout that, her counselor for years was telling her, Lisa, mental health is a commitment to reality at all costs. And it was only when she finally dealt with the problem of who her spouse had always been after 30 years that she left her marriage. Yeah. But she had to deal with the reality. Right. So learning how not to be afraid. Yes. How to swim. Learning it. And you know what? Something I realized about swimming, Karla. I remember when I was in third grade, I did not know how to swim. I knew how to fake that I knew how to swim, but I didn't know how to swim. Okay. And I remember the day I learned that I could put my face in the water, point my arms forward, and push off and glide on the surface and kick. And then I learned to paddle, and I learned to do the doggy paddle, and I learned to swim. And do you know that when somebody learns to swim, they can never unlearn that? Right. Yeah. They can't unlearn. It's like when you ride a bicycle, you learn the balance and you learn what it takes. And if you're dealing with all the same, variables, you can ride a bicycle. So that's what I ask, the balance and the swimming metaphors. Like once you learn that, you're going to be okay. And that's the same thing that I teach when I teach my 10 life-saving principles to women in difficult marriages and to anyone in a difficult relationship, child, grandparent, sibling, ex-spouse. We can learn skills to not react in ways that make it worse for us. We can learn to take care of ourselves. We can learn to detach and love. I do all those things too. I teach so many women. I tell them all to buy your book. I love your book. I do. And that detach and love chapter is fabulous. I mean, that's one of the top ones they have to embrace. And I have a 365-day devotional now. I do. I haven't myself gone into it, but I hear it's fabulous. Really good. It's a way of just giving little tidbits of tips and truth that you can grasp on and apply for that day. And like you talking about it, then everything starts to become habits. So, and the last one that you have is a roadmap to discernment. So tell us what that's about. Well, discernment is, do we want to be married? We are married. Do we want to stay married? Do we want to separate? What needs to happen? And this is a lot where some couples are, after maybe even trying to do neurodiverse coaching or other ways of healing, and they still can't get to where they want to get to. But they respect each other enough, and they want to have a healthy or good divorce, or a sober divorce where they're not just reacting and, at war. And they want to thoughtfully take it step by step and really evaluate whether or not that is the best option, because there are other people involved. There's family members, there's kids, there's lifelong friends, there's finances that are intertwined. All right. There's legal considerations, there's practical considerations of who's going to do what with the kids and where, and family houses and vacations and timeshares. There's so much to consider that is worthy of, if a couple, and I do believe there are some marriages that shouldn't continue. I do. Marriage for marriage's sake is not God honoring.
No, we get that wrong too.
Yeah, and totally. God does not hate divorce. I mean, Gretchen Baskerville has written a whole book about the life-saving divorce, and she says that they mistranslated, Malachi 2 or Malachi 2:16.
Yeah, it's not that God hates divorce; it's God hates the violence that is done in the marriage.
Yes.
And in that context, he was talking about the men, and especially the men that were leaving and abandoning their wives to nothing but potentially prostitution or going home.
Right.
And went off with another younger woman that they wanted to be with. And that was treating them very violently and very disrespectfully. And God hated that. And he told them to stop doing that. And Moses gave them the right to get a certificate of divorce so that women could go and remarry so that they could take care of themselves. So we get it so wrong. And we just put ourselves into these bonds and this toxic, rigid system that hurts us and hurts our children. So, you're gonna, and sometimes you have both people come in, right, to talk about that. Sometimes it's only one. And I've even known couples with a neurodiverse spouse that they live separately, but they stay married.
Yeah, that's not uncommon.
Yeah.
And
it's an option when living together is too overwhelming. For the person with ASD, and they can't handle the noise of children and all of the busyness and all that. But this has kept the family from having to split up.
I think that's very a very good option to consider, because none of us can have all the bluebirds singing and all the rainbow colors and happily ever after. That's a fantasy. So some of us only get a sliver of the rainbow. But let's optimize that. Let's make that good. And that might not be our whole lives and all our week, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. It might be a different variation on what the partnership looks like.
Right? Absolutely.
And as long as it's edifying to life, God honoring, and a blessing to more than not, I think that's a godly marriage.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are times when it just doesn't work, and we have to be willing to allow people not to tell them that they should or shouldn't divorce, but to allow them to come to their own conviction and awareness as far as what's healthy. And Christians do not err, especially Christians in difficult relationships, in any type of difficult marriage. They do not err on divorcing too much. They err on divorcing too little. Separating too little. So we are not here having to say, oh, no, you can't walk out on your marriage because, you don't like the same things as your spouse, or you're tired now, or now it's a struggle and it was easy before, or you've fallen out of, the
love,
really kind of
the oxytocin has worn off.
Yes, it's not time for you to do that. So yeah, absolutely. Well, how can listeners find out more about you and contact you?
So I have a website, and maybe you can also offer a link to that in the show notes, or even
I will.
I offer at this time 25-minute mini, for a very low booking fee, a mini appointment where it's about me learning about them, helping them understand me and how I approach this, what the pricing is of what I offer. I also offer support groups. I offer classes, usually, and I have a lot of women internationally that take my classes because I offer them in morning on the West Coast time. So it's still 6 or 7 o'clock in, Dubai or wherever they're at. I offer a Thursday night drop-in group where it is an ongoing community, a support group membership for neurotypical Christian women married or in relationship with maybe all kinds of people that are neurodiverse. And that's all on my website. So that is the best place to get a big picture of me.
Go to the website.
And there's also other podcasts and videos I've done that are all listed on my media page. So yeah.
So and then I will be linking, put down the podcasts that were on porn, the 4 of those with Stephanie and Dan. So I'll also be linking their information. They have also a ton of podcasts out there. So for people listening that need a place to go to get, especially Christians that need a place to go to get reliable content from people that know what they're talking about with this issue, you and Stephanie and Dan. What's the actual name of theirs? It's
called the Neurodiverse Christian Couples Podcast. And then the monthly segment Stephanie and I do, the second Monday of every month, is the Neurodiverse Christian Couples Coaches Corner. I said, Stephanie, could you not have more words in that title? Coaches Corner.
Coaches Corner.
And it's all about, we talk to different people, different coaches, different people that are trying to help couples in some way in this arena.
Perfect. So people are desperate for resources, so this will give them a lot. So thank you so much. And you last minute adjusted your time for me, so I appreciate your flexibility and your wealth of knowledge. And you look beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
So
that's good. What can I say?
Yes. So thank you again. And for those of you listening or watching, thank you very much for giving us your time. And I pray that you would have found this a way helpful to put into your own life and marriage. Also, please pass this on to anyone that you know that would benefit from it. It's just, I always say it's a gift you can give with just a click. It's just by sending it, sharing it on a text or sharing it in an email. And that way you're giving that person also hope. I hear a lot of hope in your voice.
Amen.